But when Santi passed that ball to Jalen Wells in the corner, and he makes the three, and Booker kind of crowds his space and pushes him into the bench, the ball goes through the net, and the FanDuel Sports broadcast cuts to a close-up of Jalen Wells. And Jalen Wells is kind of just staring there, like standing there staring at Devin Booker. Devin Booker's already complaining to the officials about the foul call.
That's Trish.
And to Jalen Wells' right is Dylan Brooks, who through the entire process just sat there with his lips formed in like a dissatisfied O, and his hands clamped together, and you could just tell he was fuming in that moment. And Dylan's had the last laugh on most of these battles with the Grizzlies since they moved on. I believe he was 6-2 going into last night. Obviously, Houston was a very good team. Phoenix, maybe not so much. But, it just felt like it was a fun moment because it sort of captured, hey, this is there's Cedric Howard, there's Jalen Wells. These are the guys that sort of replaced him as the Grizzlies moved on. And there was Dylan just ticked that the play went that way. So I thought that was one of the great moments of the game. But overall, a game that the Grizzlies really needed to get. And in a way, a double win. Because if you're going to follow the Grizzlies draft, the 2026 draft, which is loaded at the top, if you've been paying attention to any of these college basketball exhibitions, and I watched Tennessee and Duke the other night, Cam Boozer, tremendous player, going to go really high in the draft. Darren Peterson at Kansas, tremendous player, looked amazing against Louisville. Michael Brown on Louisville, point guard. I don't know if that's the type of player the Grizzlies would be interested in if they have Joe, but another awesome player who's going to go in the top of the draft. It's loaded. They name an attempt at Tennessee.
Sau một giảm nữa, vé trái vàng A131.
There's going to be a lot of tanking going on, and I know tanking's kind of a trigger word with the NBA right now, but I suspect there will be a lot of tanking going on at the end of the year. And the Suns are not a team that's going to be tanking because they don't have their first-round pick. So the Grizzlies are interested in the Suns being terrible, in part because they have this very complex 4-team pick swap that involves the Wizards, the Suns, the Magic, and the Grizzlies. And the Grizzlies are going to end up with the second and third best picks of those 4. So you would think Washington will be worse than Phoenix.
Đường ngăn đường sắt ở phía trước.
You want Phoenix to be the second worst team in the NBA if you're the Grizzlies. That's the goal here because it's unprotected. So not only do you get a win for yourself in the record books, you also get a win for yourself when it comes to
Vé trái vàng A131.
an extra benefit to finding a way to survive and win that game late. But I thought it was an entertaining game to watch. And if you stayed up late, you got rewarded. Do you still stay up late?
Sau nửa dặm nữa, vé trái nhảy chuyển vào I-40 về phía Memphis.
I put her down at 8, so that was the other thing. I put her down even before. I put her down like an hour before the game tips off.
Well, it's a good day if you did not stay up to go watch the highlights because the second half of that game was really fun. And Cedric Howard just continues to be impressive in ways that
I actually thought, other than John, I thought the biggest story of last night was Coward. Not only
Vé trái nhảy chuyển vào I-40 về phía Memphis.
plays that you referenced, but just the fact that already, 4 games in, granted they're shorthanded, like, they're trusted. Yeah, he was closing the game.
Yeah, look, Isolo, I'll give him some credit. He just went away from what wasn't. He said, look, we got. It was like the Pacers game felt like it was that way after they had just been run off the floor against Miami, and he had tried to use different lineups, and he had taken Conchar out of the lineup, and it was like, we need to win this game. We're playing our best guys. Last night, the same situation. We need to win this game. We're playing our best guys. He went away from Javon Small.
Sau 3,7 dặm nữa, đi vào lối A1 vào Riverside Drive.
Cedric Howard in that game too. KCP wasn't great last night, so I thought that was
giảm nữa, đi vào lối ra một vào Riverside ngay.
Indeed potential. You can see superstar potential in some of these plays. I'm not saying that's what he's going to become, but you can see it because the athleticism pops. And when he's aggressive, especially like he was last night in the early stages of the game, he can get good shots for himself. He doesn't force it. He's a very efficient player. But if he did force it, I think the numbers would be higher because I think he's that skilled. And then lastly, when they talk about he could be an awesome secondary rim protector, all you gotta do is think back to the game against New Orleans, the first game of the season, where he's walling up on Zion Williamson, and his ability to recover and help. And Sam Vecini did a great breakdown on his Substack of Cedric Coward playing defense. If you want to check that out, but he absolutely looks like a player that could become, more than just this ball of clay that he is right now, and really take off in one of these directions. And guess what? If he takes off in multiple directions, that's an all-star level player. And so if that was what the Grizzlies wanted, right? That is exactly what Zach Hyman talked about at the end of last season, or sorry, at the draft.
Sử dụng làn đường bên phải để đi vào lối ra một vào Riverside ngay.
That's what he was talking about. The first 5 games of Cedric Coward. That's a player that has a higher end outlook. And so, and listen, Desmond Bain is awesome. But, and maybe Cedric Coward never gets to the level of player that Desmond Bain is. But he has the potential to. And that's what we've seen through the first 5 games. And it's what's so
Đi vào lối ra, sau đó tiếp tục đi về bên phải.
already several impressive John Morant performances, I think.
Listen, if he can
Sử dụng làn đường bên phải để tiếp tục đi về bên phải vào Riverside ngay sau về phía Front Street sau đó đi vào lối rẽ trái thứ nhất vào Jefferson Avenue.
At this point, to me, it's more eye test than it is numbers. Like, I think the thing that is encouraging about it is the fact that
Tại nền tiếp theo, rẽ trái.
far this has been a hit. But then when you start looking at numbers, you're like, okay, like it's not. Sometimes you'll see like where a guy might have good numbers and the eye test doesn't necessarily pop. To me, it was always the Bradley Beal. Like your eyes always told you he's not as good of a player as his numbers were. But at the same time, both line up right now. And then
Tại nền, rẽ trái vào Jefferson Avenue, sau đó đi vào lối rẽ phải thứ nhất vào North Front Street.
I did this last night, or
I would love to know.
in the afternoon, because I was just
Oh,
messing
you're fun. You're
around.
fun with numbers.
Yeah.
George was read. George, my new thing is George has to read me Twitter
Oh, there we go.
because I got hacked. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously the sample sizes are minuscule, so they matter not at all. But it was just fun to do anyway. I went through 2-man lineups on NBA.com, and I filtered it to lineups that have played more than 25 minutes together for the Grizzlies. This was before the game last night. I imagine these might be better now at this point. The highest offensive rating, Javon Small and
Tại nền, rẽ phải vào North Front Street, sau đó rẽ trái vào Monroe Avenue.
and Cedric Coward. The best true shooting percentage, Jalen Wells and Cedric Coward. The fastest pace, Jalen Wells and Cedric Coward. Player impact estimate, the highest high, as they call it, Santi Aldama and
Sau 1/4 giảm nữa, rẽ trái vào Monroe Avenue.
that leads the Grizzlies with more than 25 minutes going into last night.
Take that.
He impacts the game in ways that shows up on the box score and ways that doesn't show up on the box.
Đi qua nền này, sau đó, tại điểm tiếp theo, rẽ trái.
Really fun for the Grizzlies fans to have something to hold on to in a season that, like, look, the team signaled that they were prepared to take a step back, right? And maybe that is still the case. And they're 3-2. They haven't been like tremendous at all. But when you watch what he's able to do, it really gives you a lot of hope. There was another Grizzlies thing that I wanted to talk about here in this first segment, Jeffrey, and that is something that I wrote over at the Daily Memphian.
Tại nền, rẽ trái vào Monroe Avenue, sau đó, điểm đến ở bên phía tay trái của bạn.
So we've heard.
First citing civil the reason that they are closing. And then I believe there's been a statement since that said that was the wrong language and we didn't mean to say that.
They meant kind of like the perception around civil unrest, I think was the statement.
Yes. And that's not just affecting them. That's affecting every restaurant that's downtown. And I know Jeff has tried to promote downtown dining on the show. I join him in that. There's lots of restaurants that I love downtown.
Điểm đến ở bên phía tay trái của bạn.
Majestic Grill downtown. That was one of our favorites. And the downtown coffee shops I still frequent all the time. Hive is great. Love
Đã đến.
there. It's a really cool spot to stop in. And downtown restaurants need people to go to eat.